Okay. Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome and thank you so much for joining me this afternoon. Don't worry. Don't worry. I can see you, Mr. Graham. I can see you. I can see you there. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome and thank you so much for joining me this evening on the late one in review news. And it's a beautiful day. It's 29th of the 9th, 29th of September. And I tell you the honest truth. Let me tell you this. I went into the park today, this morning, and it was beautiful. And when everyone is going to work and they are pushing, I was pushing towards the park. I was pushing towards having a moment in the park and going against the flow. It's always good to go against the flow, ladies and gentlemen. Never always go with the flow. And what was very interesting was while I was there in the park today, I just got this beautiful discussion. I was talking about the superficial black man, but we'll talk about that in a few seconds as well. But on a serious note, the pound has falls, interest rate rise, and Putin, so much things are happening around the world. But hey, let us see if we can dissect it. One of my guests in the past, and he may be here tonight, Mr. Anthony Francis, he gave the Prime Minister 7 days. 7 days he gave the Prime Minister, 7 days. And we pushed him against the 7 days, and he went to maybe 100 days. And now he's here now with his verdict. Maybe regret that we actually pushed him against that. Is that correct, Anthony Francis? Good evening.
Yeah, well, good evening, Sylbourne, and good evening to your viewers also. And thanks for having me back on. I think you've obviously decided to bring me back on because my prediction at the time seems to have come to fruition. So all I can say is I got it right.
Okay, well, let's see. Let's bring in the minister. He never lies. Mr. Graham, how are you doing, sir? He's smiling. Gary?
Are you there?
We're here. Oh, where are you?
I think you're stuck. I'm still seeing your late review.
Is it? No, you shouldn't see that. Anthony, you can see me clearly.
Yes, I can see you clearly.
Yeah. Gary, what I suggest you do, you go out and come back.
Leave and come back.
Yes, you can leave and come back. Yeah, fantastic. Anyway, yeah, Anthony, how are you doing, man? I mean, it's I don't know if I should say it is crazy what is happening in the UK now, but it is crazy.
Clearly, I think what's gone on in the last couple of days with the mini budget, it's a little bit like it wasn't actually termed a mini budget. It was called, I think, a fiscal event. I think that's what it was labeled as originally. And it reminds me of the Putin exercise where he's not gone to war. He's doing a special military operation. So, I'm not trying to compare the two, but both obviously have had disastrous effects. And clearly what we've seen with the Chancellor and the new Prime Minister, and something that I mentioned on your show before, was that if you give the keys to the main office in the country to people who don't actually know what they're doing, then this is the likely outcome that we shouldn't be surprised by. Let's be honest, Liz Truss wasn't really known by that many people until the leadership election. She had one or two ministerial roles, but to say she was Prime Minister material, I think was questionable. And Kwasi Kwarteng, who is now the Chancellor, got his position as Business Secretary as a result of another sort of move or shuffling of the decks by Boris Johnson. Now he's in that position, and then he's just not quite.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Let's bring in Gary. Can you see us now? Gary?
Yeah. Well, I don't
Gary,
know what's wrong with myself today. I can hear you. Okay, I can see you now.
Yeah.
Hello, Anthony.
Okay, good.
Hey, Gary, how are you?
It's better that you're seeing Anthony than me. You know, glad that you're seeing Anthony.
I haven't seen Anthony. I haven't seen Anthony for how many years now?
What is that?
I haven't seen
What's that?
Anthony for
What's that,
quite a
Gary?
few years, but it's great. It's great to see him, and at least Liz Trust has brought him back out onto the airwaves here.
Yeah, but yeah. I mean, you know, in a way, would you say that the mini? Well, let's say it's. I mean, one of the reasons why they call it a mini budget, because if a budget is done and the budget is not passed, the government has to go. So maybe that's why the word mini came in there. But isn't it early days at the same time? I know you don't like the early days, Anton, because you gave 7 days, and 7 days gone a long time. It's what, a month now?
Yeah, but no, listen, you know, to me, it's a bit like a job interview, Selborne. You know, when you go for a job interview, 9 times out of 10, the minute you walk in, people have already made up their mind whether or not they feel you fit the bill. When you start the job, you're on a probation period of maybe a month, and really in that time, it's within the first couple of weeks that people are looking at your conduct, they're looking at your ability, they're looking to see if you can actually do the job. You know, especially if you're being paid a lot of money or you're in a high position, they're expecting you to obviously hit the ground running. This isn't some sort of apprenticeship. This is the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom and the Chancellor of the United Kingdom, right? These guys are responsible for the economy and the trajectory of the UK government. And what we've seen so far in their very short time, a month in office, and this is that they're not. I mean, you know, clearly the Bank of England don't intervene because they've got nothing else better to do. You know, people's pensions, potentially the organisations that provide people like me with our pensions every month, they were about to become insolvent because of the actions of the Chancellor being a bit reckless in terms of some of the policies that he had brought forward and said he was doing. So when you say, you know, it's a bit of a short time, he's wasted no time in reckoning.
Yeah. Gary, what's your take on this, Gary?
Well, I mean, what what can we say? I think Anthony has I said it all there. I think that Liz Trust. Let's start from with her. Now, in our little debates leading up to the election, Sylbourne, we did share and say that between Liz Trust and
Rishi Sunak.
Rishi, yes, that the country was not ready for Rishi, only on the basis that he's an Asian. Now, he may have been the right person in as much as saying that he has experience of finance, because that's his background. So he's coming from that. At the same time, if you remember, I did listen to all his debates. I think you probably did, Sylbourne. I don't know if Anthony did. But in probably one or two of the debates that he had with her going around the country, with the policies that she says that she was going to bring forth, he did begin to ring warning bells. He did say that with whatever she is proposing to do, it's not going to be good. Now, obviously, I didn't really have a magnifying glass on each of the policies that she was bringing forth as far as the finances were concerned. But obviously, he was ringing the bells from that time. She has now taken over. She was known on the outside, and I hold my hands up to some extent out of the two to say that Liz Truss was the better known individual on the outside, because she was what? She was the foreign secretary, wasn't she? So so based on that, between the two, there were other world leaders that if she or if the government at all was going to interact with any of the governments outside of the
Yeah.
UK, that it would be Liz Truss who would have been the one that they would meet. Obviously, there are other departments, but she's the one that is the face of the UK outside of the UK when it comes to foreign policy. Yeah. So Liz Truss was one that was a safe face. She had the respect, or at least let us say she has the respect. Obviously, now coming into government and being the prime minister, it is a totally different responsibility at all, because the buck now stops with her and not with Boris. She now does not really have what we're seeing now, what we're experiencing now, is that probably, and it's not that everybody, should have the experience of prime ministership,
Yeah.
but up to a certain point, there are people who would have a degree of responsibility that can show that they are able to manage a country such as the UK. And what we're seeing here and now is that does not seem to be the case. Because even with the Chancellor of the Exchequer coming in, the question that I was asking, I've got a very dear friend who's a financier, and his fingers are always on the button as far as finance overseas and within the border, because he deals in heavy finance across the divide. But I asked the question, where are the advisors? Did they have advisors? Were they advised? Because it would seem that the Bank of England came in and had to bail out the country, the government, let's say, with over 60 plus billion. Now that's not a walk in the park. Like what
Sorry, are you talking about now? Are you talking about now?
Yeah, I'm talking about now, because based on the fiscal policies which the government has stated in their mini budget. Well, it wasn't a mini budget. That was a full-blown budget, because it's just disrupted the entire workings of government.
All right, let's look at what, in summary, what the government is actually saying. The Chancellor is saying that the government will stick to its plan to try to boost the UK economy. He says it will also help people with their energy bills, despite widespread. Wait. I'm just running through some of despite widespread criticism of Friday's mini budget. In a message to Conservative MP, he called for their support and tried to reassure them of the government's approach. The Prime Minister early defended the mini budget as well. Despite days of market turmoil, she said cutting taxes and increasing borrowing was right. The pound slumped in value following Friday's announcement, and the Bank of England pledged to buy billions of pounds worth of government debt in the form of bonds. Ex-Bank of England Governor Mark Carney accused the government of working cross purposes with the bank. There are fears of inflation and interest rates could rise faster than predicted. Now, the government is on one level there saying, let this play out. Do you think, Anthony, the nation have the time for this to play out, or is a catalyst of disaster pending like a Titanic?
Well, I mean, it's interesting that you use the words play out, and clearly some people might say they've only just introduced these measures and it's the market reacting to it. But you can't have the market reacting to it when the Bank of England has to actually pay 50 or 60 billion to bail out various organizations that provide pensions, because there's been a run on them. And how do you want it to play out? I mean, it has played out, and the market has spoken. That there was a run on the equities, on the gilts. which meant that people's pensions were in danger, and some organisations were in danger of becoming insolvent. The bank had to step in. If the Bank of England did not step in, what do you think the likely consequence would have been? I mean, how would that have played out? That potentially could have played out with people who are reliant on their pensions not receiving them. So you've got people not receiving their pensions because the organisations that they receive them from has gone insolvent. You've then got the high interest rates that the Bank of England would have had to introduce to therefore try and stop the inflation in the first place, which would have gone up to maybe 6%. That 6% would have suddenly meant that people's mortgages, currently now on, say for example, if they had £100,000 mortgage paying something in the region of maybe £600 or £700 a month, would have been paying maybe about £900 to £1,000 a month. The energy cap that they said they had put in would have been dwarfed by the extra money they would have had to spend on the actual mortgages. Then on top of that, you've got the cost of living increases. We're not just talking about food, we're talking about petrol, everyday, things that we need to live, which obviously have also gone up, maybe 10, 15, 20%. So, when you say play out, how long do you want this thing to play out? This isn't Monopoly. This isn't something. This isn't one of these games where you can, okay, I made a mistake, I'll just roll back. You can't play games with people's money and the economy. And I think Gary mentioned it. What was missing in the actual mini budget there was the government refused to take on board the Office of National Statistics, or I think it's called the Office of National Statistics. It's the body that reviews sort of major fiscal events like the budget, just to make sure that actually what they're saying, is actually on point, and and the country can afford it. That's the reason why I think when Kwasi Kwarteng got his job, he actually sacked the Treasury Minister. I can't understand why he did that. So he's, in a way, he's gone into this thing with Liz Truss blind, and what's playing out is, the blind leading the blind, and you can't do that with the British economy. But don't forget, the British economy isn't an island on its own. We're a global economy, whereby if we, the actions of us have a knock-on effect to other countries around the world, and if they see that our interest rates are at this particular price, if our equities and our gilts are being on the run, then it has a knock-on effect that once somebody sees their money being pulled out, they'll think, you know what, I don't want to lose my money, I'll take my money out, which is exactly what happened to Northern Rock. And then all of a sudden the bank went down, and Northern Rock went down, and the bank had to bail them out. So this is what you mean by, if this is what you mean by playing out, then Sylbourne, then no, we can't have it.
Well, it's interesting what you say there now, and what you're saying is an echo of the general consensus which is around there. And Gary, if I put this to you now, if this is what is playing out, is it that, what are the options that you see a prime minister should do? Listen to what the Anthony voices are saying, and get back to the table, or call a general election, because I don't see the need for another leadership thing, because people are all talking about another leadership thing, and they're trying to recall the prime minister and get Rishi Sunak in. They're now saying Rishi Sunak is a favorite. I mean, this is really going crazy.
Well, I mean, you answered your own question. The question you were asking me, you answered it. I mean, I spoke to my friend, the financier, and I asked him the same question, and he said to me, "It's got to be a different government. This government has set the policy. Liz Truss can't fix this." Because what did she say this morning on the radio? Did anybody hear what she said?
I did listen to it, Gary, and sadly, one of the reasons why I was so anti Liz Truss is because Liz Truss actually doesn't actually know what she's talking about.
Exactly.
Is that one where she gasped?
Liz Truss.
When they said she couldn't respond properly, is that?
She couldn't respond. She was asked the question. She was asked the question by a guy in Bristol, and he made the same point I just made. If the mortgage rates have gone up and then they've actually dwarfed the energy price cap, what was the purpose of doing it? And she actually had no answer. I think there was a pause of about maybe 20 seconds or so where she was trying to work out an answer, and she simply had no answer. Because and the reason why she's got no answer, I mean, and I hate to say this again and again, when you're incompetent, when you don't actually know what you're talking about, there's no place to hide on the world stage. When these interviewers are asking you questions, if you don't have the answer, right, to be able to calm not just the markets, but to calm the general public and to show them that you are a competent person who knows what they're talking about, all she's managed to do is to demonstrate that she actually does not know what she's talking about. And that in itself breeds a sense of, oh my gosh, who have we got running the country here? She doesn't know what she's talking about. And I think that's what really is worrying now. And as Gary said, there's no need for another leadership election, from the Conservative point of view, because obviously they will all now want Richie Sunak to get the job. But that ship has now sailed. The only thing they can do is to call a general election and then let the people speak.
Yeah. Well, if it was Rishi Sunak now, how do you see? I mean, I can see how he would operate. I think, would he be on the airwaves talking about this thing? I mean, there was a massive gap, a silence from the government for a while. About
1 week.
Sorry to interrupt again, Gary. Rishi Sunak gave an interview where he actually said this was exactly what was going to happen in the leadership race with Liz Truss. He was on TV.
He said it. He was on recently.
But during the campaign for leader, there was an interview, 2 or 3 of the hustings, where Liz Truss did her usual YouTube speech, and Rishi Sunak explained, if you go down this road, there'll be a run on the markets. He explained exactly what would happen, and it's actually it's fascinating because the actual speech he gave is actually in the Spectator magazine today, right? They published it, and so he told them. He actually said this would happen. Rishi Sunak would not have done this because he all along he said he was not going to be the prime minister who was going to simply just try and borrow his way out of this problem. And you can't, because where is the money going to come from? They've now spent all this money on doing what they said they're going to do. They've dropped the 45 pence tax, etc., etc. Now you tell me all of that is going to cost, I think, from memory, about 100 billion. They haven't even mentioned how they're going to now get the money to deal with the NHS and also the social care. So, to be honest, Sylbourne, and I'll stop now. I've got no idea where this money's going to come from for decades.
Not costed. So the Labour conference, they said the Labour conference was very upbeat, and they said it's the best place they've been for a long time. Are we seeing a government in waiting?
I mean, listen, the only reason why Labour can say that, right, and the Liberal Democrats could say the same thing, SNP could say the same thing, or is all because of the position in which the Conservative Party have put themselves in. Now, look at it again like this. The Bank of England raised interest rates, yes, and they said that that's what they're going to do to combat. Is it inflation or is it recession? Which is the one that they are battling? It was inflation, wasn't it? So inflation. They raised it a couple of points. Okay, what then does the Bank of England do that they said they wouldn't have done? Really, they went and borrowed money, or they went and paid 60 billion. No, that is a complete. I was listening a debate this morning, and the commentator said it's a complete turnaround to what the Bank of England said that they would have done. They've only had to do that because of the policies of the government. Because the government doesn't control. I mean, I think Anthony will be able to help me out on this. The last time anything of this nature happened to some extent, and it wasn't, well, I don't think it had anything to do with whatever the government of today is battling, but during that little crisis back then was when Norman Lamont was was excellent, and I think he took the Bank of England out of government, in the sense that
out of the monetary fund, out of the ERM or something like that. Was that?
Well, it was the ERM, but it was that the government would not influence the decisions of the bank. The bank is independent.
Yeah.
The bank is independent. So for the bank to have done what they did, they're trying to stabilize the market. Then for Liz Truss, right, to say what she said this morning didn't help the situation on what the bank has tried to do, because the pound is still being affected. The pound is still losing value. She never helped. If she had come back to say, okay, let us, if they had come back during that spell of a week, 5 days to a week, if they have said, we're going to discuss this thing, we're going to come back and see what we can do to address the situation, then I don't think probably the market would have reacted the way they did. But they said nothing. There was no communication until today. Then when she opens her mouth to say something, right, it's totally the wrong thing.
Okay,
so no wonder the Labour Party today can say that they've had a good meeting and that they are ready for government, because they know, and everybody knows, that the Conservative Party won't win the next election, not unless they can get our friend here, Anthony, to kind of sort things out.
well, it is evident that the market is needing a calm voice. Or, I mean, right now it's like there's been no calm voice for a very long time. A calm voice to sort of cool the shivers which is happening out there. And there's a saying, silence is golden, but silence is gold is not needed now. You need someone to speak. But the problem, according to what Anthony said, is that when you speak, you're displaying something else which is not helpful, isn't it? Displaying a level of not for me as a conservative to say the word, but Anthony, you can say it.
Well, look, I think we've got, at the end of the day, the people in the UK aren't stupid. I mean, people's bills have gone up. I mean, before the change of leadership, the only problem that we had was a cost of living crisis, which was obviously brought about primarily by the war in Ukraine. That was the main problem that we had, not just in this country, but throughout Europe, mainly because obviously we're so reliant on Putin's gas coming in from Russia and also from the Ukraine. And that obviously pushed up energy prices, which obviously led to all the problems that we've been having with raw materials coming in, etc., etc. So that was the main problem. What we have now is self-inflicted problems where, we've caused a run on the bank. We've now caused, we've seen with the 45 pence cap for anyone who earns over 150,000, that 45p tax bracket is now gone. And I believe Kwasi Kwarteng's and Liz Truss's rationale for doing that is that, it will then lead to trickle down economics where it will encourage investment, we'll get more companies to come in, etc., etc. But in reality, that doesn't work. And the reason why it doesn't work isn't because I don't think it will work. It's because people like Warren Buffett has said it won't work. And also, when you think about it, if someone's on 150,000, or you've got someone who's earning £1 million, or the organisation that they're head of is earning beneficiaries of that, it's their stakeholders. That doesn't trickle down here in South Park Crescent. It doesn't trickle down to Gary where he is, or down to you, right? That trickles down to those guys. So all that really happens is that they get richer, which is exactly what Starmer has been saying. Yeah. So this idea that you can just simply cut the 45 pence tax rate and suddenly this great innovation will happen and money will just fall out of the sky and land in my garden, that's just not going to happen.
I think what should have happened is this. What should have happened is that leading into the party conference, either Labour Party going into the conference now, the Conservatives should have gone into the conference, and they shouldn't have made. Liz Truss made it 2,500. Many people are criticizing it now, saying that it is incorrect. Even Martin Lewis is saying that it was incorrect. I think what should have happened is going to the conference, get everybody united again, get Rishi Sunak on board with all these fringe things, and then come back out and say something which can calm the affairs. By that trigger announcement, that mini budget somehow didn't adapt them, but at the same time, isn't it correct that the dollar is also getting a bit stronger? So there's something on the seas as well, which has also triggered it. It's not just the Chancellor's speech.
Are you in a different planet or something? I mean, you're beginning to sound like Liz Truss.
No, why do you say that?
Because from what you just said, just said that.
No, I said one of the contributory factor.
Sylbourne, we've just spent 30 minutes talking about the fact the Bank of England have intervened with £60 billion worth of having to shore up our debt because of the comments made by the Chancellor. If he hadn't have opened his mouth and spoken so much rubbish, then we wouldn't be in this situation. If he didn't cut the 45p tax rate, people wouldn't be talking about trickle down. In fact, I might as well call it treacle down economics, because it's just a joke. That's the reality. You asked me earlier, should we let things play out? They are playing out, Sylbourne, and this is what's happening now. The country now. We've just seen institutions pull mortgages that they were offering just the other day. They've been pulled, right?
I mean, you're right.
So this is now what's been playing out, and you're right. Maybe Liz Truss should have said nothing until the party conference was over and brought everybody on board. But when you're incompetent, you don't know the ways of a leader, and you don't know how to actually say, right, this is what I'm going to do. Because she didn't do that, and she spent all of her time saying, this, I'm gonna do this and I'm gonna do that. She came out and has made these statements now, and quite frankly, because she's lost credibility and Kwasi Kwarteng has lost credibility, they've got nowhere to go. Their backs against the wall, and it's game over.
Wow, Gary, I don't know if you're on the show at the time when Anthony said 7 days, and we pushed him and said 20 days. I think he said, okay. And the 7 days is actually up long time, even though the Queen sort of gave a little lull there at the same time. What is the way forward now? What do you see as a way forward now, Gary?
What do I see?
Yeah.
I mean, I really don't know how the government is going to come back from this. They never said anything when they should have said something, and when they shouldn't have said something, they said something, which has just made it worse for them. One of the only ways, and probably that could help Liz, is to sack Kwasi. Sack him to bring a bit of credibility, if that at all will happen. Because as I don't know if it was yourself or Tony that just said that you can't have another leadership election. I mean, that boat has gone. That bus has left the bus stop. She is now the party leader. So what she needs to do is bring back credibility to the government and to the party. The only way she's going to do that is if she makes a decision that I don't think any leader, whether it be business or whatever, or politics, that is going to need it to be done, that has to be done, which is to sack someone, and someone at the very highest level, to kind of bring some stability, because the government, the country is at the whim of the money markets. If the markets collapse, and if the government, and if the Bank of England continues to pour money in this way, then it's not going to look good.
And you know what? I'm going to bring in Anthony after. When I heard about the the tax break on the bankers as well. I mean, so they can get their bonus. I said to myself, wrong statement, wrong time. Even if you're gonna do it, don't do that now. With what people are actually going through, you're sending a wrong message, and the messages were just going through really bad. Anthony, what's the way forward? Sack Kwasi?
Well, no, you can't sack Kwasi now, because if you sack Kwasi, you've got to sack yourself, as Liz Truss. You know,
Yeah.
if she sacks Kwasi, she's got to go as well, because
Mm.
she's the one who made him chancellor. She's the one who said this is what we're going to do. She's the one who said this in the leadership hustings. So if she sacks Kwasi, it means that she has to also step down. So I think the only way forward for this is, sadly, as Gary just said, they're going to have to let it play out, which means that the market are going to actually dictate whether or not they actually stay in government or not. Because if there's a run anymore on the pound and it goes below $1, if the pound goes below $1, she's finished, and the government and the Conservative MPs themselves will call a vote of no confidence and will actually pull down the government.
Wow. I mean, I've never seen that before, where the pound and the dollar is almost neck to neck.
And the thing about it is that the country really relies on the Conservatives as a party of business.
Yes.
So I mean, I don't really have any confidence in the Labour Party to take us out of this. I really don't. I mean, I'm not saying that the Conservatives are any better, but I can't see the Labour Party having anything to bring us out of this. There's nobody there. I'm just hoping that the Conservative Party, with Rishi involved, Liz can rally the people together, because they need help right now. I understand what Anthony has said. I agree with him.
Yeah.
So if Liz can't sack Kwasi and Kwasi can't go without Liz going, then what she needs is the party to rally around, to get all of the financial minds together to help to get the party, to get the country out of this melee, because it will get worse.
Yeah.
It's going to get worse.
So at this present moment, it is to not let it play out, but I sense there's a lot of damage control, which is going to be happening now. Going to the party conference, try to rally the troops somehow, as Anthony said, and I think you're right. If Kwasi can go, she's got to go. If she goes, Kwasi can go, and that's it. Game over. Strengthening the case for the Labour Party. The Labour Party's strength is actually based on their rebound, or their figures of 53%, I believe, at the polls, is due to the failings at present of the Conservative Party. And so I'm not going to use the word play out, because we don't want it to play out, Anthony, rightly as you say, because people's lives have been affected. There are many demonstrations which are happening. Barristers are going to be striking. People are actually saying it's going to be a winter of discontentment, because they said the poor need food, and that is what is happening. I just realized today that it was a bit chilly. I had to turn on the heating. I'm trying to say, and I'm just thinking now, for people coming on to this winter period, that's going to be serious stuff, heavy stuff. And with the food, between heating or eating, that's going to be a massive call. And the persons who are at the top, who are making all these decisions, taxpayers are also maybe paying for their heating. You know what I'm saying? So I watch the space, but I'm not going to use the word play out, as Anthony said. We've got to make sure there are interventions at this time. Right, Anthony?
Indeed.
Yeah. I want to just touch on something before we go, and it's back to the Chancellor as well. There was a statement by the MP, Rupa Hack, for Central Ealing, when she mentioned that the Chancellor is superficially black. And it created this thing whereby she has been suspended from the Labour Party. And her terminology, because I did a video of it and I was listening to it, and what she said is that he went to a private school, went to a top school. When you listen to him on the radio, he doesn't sound black. where is this coming from? The last person said something like that was Biden. If you ain't voting for me, you ain't black. And he was speaking to a black man. Where is this coming from, Gary?
I don't know. I mean, listen, I don't know. I don't ever really want to say anything on that, because I thought the person who said it was I thought the person was white. I thought the individual who said that was white. I was not aware that the individual who said that until the day after that she was Asian. She's Asian. No, listen. I mean, to me, I want to stay as innocent as I can and stay in my right mind. Anthony, as you said, there are many moons back, and it has always stayed with me. I'm a man of the cloth.
And then,
but I'm telling you,
been considered to be
these
never been considered to be superficially black.
Listen, no, let me finish. These things, Sylbourne, we've got to call a spade, and that's why I'm saying that probably it wasn't a good it wasn't the right time for Rishi to be the prime minister, because if he was, then we and I may be talking out of turn here, but if that had come here, then we as black men, right, we would have it just as hard, because that is the mentality of what's going on out there. We've got to realize that every so often these things come to the fore. There's certain things at certain times that happens, and they're little signal. It's like it even happens amongst us. Sometimes we do things or we say things unbeknown in our psyche or subliminally that betrays us. Now, it is sad that she said it. It is very sad she said what she said, but she said it not knowing what reaction it would have brought, because it's something that they talk about. It's something that they think it probably is a slip of the tongue, but it's a shame that she said it, and it's rather frightening that she should have said something like that, really, because what else is being said?
Is it the saying, out of the abundance of the heart, so the mouth speaketh?
Well, the Bible says that, and I believe it does happen, and it happens amongst us, amongst me too. There's certain things that I will say that is not right, is not proper, but I don't know I've said it until, let's say, Anthony tells me, remember, Graham, you're a man of the cloth, be careful. And then it comes back to me to say, oh, I need to be careful. Oh, I may have to go back and revisit my own foundation. Yeah. Because if I need to change, it's not superficially on top. I've got to change. I've got to go back down to the roots to change that, so that at times when certain questions or certain situations arise, I don't spurt off from the mouth and not know what I've said. So we need to know that when certain people say certain things, it's not a mistake. It's not a mistake. And even though these people will apologize for the things that they've said publicly, because yes, but it's not a mistake, because it's a part of them.
Yeah. Anthony?
Part of them.
Well, look, obviously, Gary is a man of the cloth. So he has to obviously be a little bit more careful in his choice of words. But as for me, at the end of the day, look, if Graham has said, if this person was white and said what she said, the whole of the black community and others would be all over this individual like a rash, right? They'd be calling for her resignation, etc., etc. It would be non-stop, wall to wall. In fact, there'll be so much coverage, it would probably cover up the sort of bad news that Liz Truss and Kwasi Kwarteng, because there would have been all this media thing about racism, and it would have been all over the media. Okay, it just so happens that she's also Asian, So, there's also that sort of shock factor that somebody who's Asian is actually calling somebody else who happens to be of, not part of the minority, but a minority, things in a public debate, the Labour Party fringe, which is, even more remarkable. But I think what's really sad about this is really three things. The first thing I would say is that she's been suspended, and I think actually that suspension should be a lot longer. I don't think she should be sacked as an MP, but I certainly think that there should be a longer reprimand for her. I also believe that the points she made, which are really sad and really demeaning actually for any individual, any person, black or white, is that she's basically saying, if you go to a good school, my son went to a private school, my son works for a very well-known online retailer right now, and he speaks very good English, and most people, if they met him, probably wouldn't think that he was black. So does that mean that my son is superficially black?
Yeah.
The same with us on this program. Are we superficially black because we went to good schools, we sound European, and we happen to have good jobs? I mean, you're a solicitor, Sylbourne. I used to be head of global operations for Orange, right? So, what does that say for us? So, at the end of the day, I think her choice of words and what she said were completely inappropriate.
Yeah.
And I think it just highlights the fact of how challenging black people have to go in order to overcome various stigmas and people's stereotypes, and also what people say behind closed doors, that covert racism. Yeah. And it happens not just in white people, but sadly also in other races as well.
Yeah. No, you're right about that, because I mean, as I mentioned in my show earlier, in my walk this morning, it was Biden who said, if you ain't black, if you're going to vote for Trump, and persons who are black who are member of the Conservative Party are normally deemed to be, hey, that's uncalled for. I remember one time I was knocking on the door, me and another brother from Jamaica. We knocked on the door, and the lady called me and said, I need to speak to you guys. Two black Jamaican man knocked on my door, said I'm a conservative. I mean, she just couldn't work it out there. And so therefore we also engender within ourselves, engender the same thing what the lady said. And like you, Anthony, I'm not one of those persons who like to cancel people and say sacked and being dragged all and quartered. But of course there need to be some level of reprimand as well. But maybe it's good that it actually come to the surface in a way so it can be dissected and people can really look at themselves in the mirror, because it seems to be, it is not just aligned to the white race, the Asian race, but it's also aligned to all different races, especially within the black community as well. And that is,
but I think, sorry to interrupt yourself, and I think the point that really what she was making was that socially, from a social background point of view, that Kwasi was not a typical, because of his economic and his social status, he's not a typical black person. That's the point that she's really making, and why she calls him superficially black. Look, he went to Eton. He went to a school that normal people cannot afford to go to. The things that the circles that he deals with aren't the normal circles. The money that he has isn't the normal money. So in terms of, me and Kwasi, we don't have anything in common because of his background, his money, and his education. We have nothing in common, really. So I think from a social point of view, that's where she probably was making the reference to him being superficially black, because he is not your normal black person. He's not a working class, middle class black person who is actually doing the stuff that me and you can relate to. He is, he is hanging out with he was hanging out with the boys in Eton, and those people who hang out in Eton and those sorts of colleges tend to be of what we used to refer to as being toffs and the upper class. And so therefore we didn't see ourselves in that social circle. And I think that perhaps was the point that she was probably trying to infer, but she used the wrong language.
Right. So what's the verdict for her, Gary?
What's the verdict?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, well, she's apologized. She's done what is expected of her. I would agree with what Anthony says, that, or was it you that says, okay, fine, she shouldn't be sacked or she shouldn't lose her job or anything like that. She's apologized and stuff. But you see, the thing about it is that this thing is entrenched. These things are entrenched in the psyche of people. And yes, Kwazi, I'm proud that we've got a black man up there. I'm proud that he's reached his status that he has, because he's the first black man to be Chancellor of the Exchequer, isn't it?
Correction. Don't forget we've had Richie.
And we had Sajid Javid.
And we had Sajid. So I think sadly you're making the distinction on black as in non-Asian, as in not an Asian person.
That's what I'm saying. Because again, let me make if I can just say this, like the term BAME, I don't like that. I don't like that.
Categorize.
A lot of these things that I've worked quite a bit in the area of social action and worked with community organizations and such. And for us, when we do apply for funding, it's very difficult for us. I've worked with and around certain organizations, black organizations that applied for the same amount, a little less or a little more, to do work in the community, and we have to climb ladders and walls, and even then we don't get the funding. Yet for Asian communities and for Asian organizations, they get the money, they get it, and in their applications they will say it's for everybody. Everybody has to say that. So it's for everybody in the community, for black, Asians, and everybody, and they get the money. When we apply and put the very same thing, we don't get anything. So sometimes I just think I'm just proud that about black men. If it was Anthony as a black man who went and became Chancellor of the Exchequer or did whatever. Well, we've got a few black men that's done that anyway. But to be Chancellor, I'm proud that he has been there. But at the same time, I think that, there needs to be just a bit more care. I think there needs to be a bit more care and especially at this time. I said to a friend of mine this evening that especially now, especially at this point in UK political history, where the decision to do what has been done has taken place, and we are now in this position to have Kwasi at the top of the game as far as this concerned, that we're in this quandary. I'm just sad that it's happened.
Yeah, well, it is very clear that, as Anthony will say as well, competence is a key order of the day. Competence from the top, from the Prime Minister, from Kwasi Teng, from everyone now. We've got to move beyond colors, all the superficial, all the emotion, all the breaking glass ceiling. I mean, I just saw this message just came up a while ago. Mini budget PM to meet the head of OBR. I think this is what you're talking about, Anthony, the Office of Budget Responsibility. To discuss the fallout after Friday's mini budget. And OBR said it offered to prepare a draft forecast in time for the mini budget. Listen to this. The OBR said it offered to prepare a draft forecast in time for the mini budget, but it was not taken up. A group of MPs has called for the forecast to be released immediately. So on Thursday, Prime Minister Liz Truss spent their day defending the policy. So let's hope that there can be some common sense and some sort of arrogance, if anything, and people can actually look and say, hey, I slipped. I think it is better they say they slip now than slip later. Anthony, it's better they say slip now than slip later and try to fix it. And you got a 2 years to run it, or they're gonna have to call election.
I mean, still arrogance. The arrogance has been displayed already. That's too late. Arrogance has been shown, because if the OBR and there must have been other advisors around to
Voices.
advise
Yeah, the
against
voices,
it, and they went ahead and did what they did. Then that shows that arrogance prevailed.
yes.
But I think what it also shows as well, you mentioned about common sense, Sylbourne. Sadly, common sense isn't common practice with the government or the new regime now. And I think that's really, this. I'm obviously very big on talking about people's competence, because at the end of the day, if the person isn't competent to do the job, they will soon be found out. And this isn't, as I mentioned right at the beginning, this isn't an opportunity here where you just get a chance to play things out and you don't properly plan and actually get advice before you make these decisions. If the Office of Budgetary Responsibility were offering to provide input into the mini budget and it was refused, so what's Kwasi Kwarteng and Liz Truss saying? That they know more than the Office of Budget Responsibility, that they're more competent than a body which is actually there to advise, to make sure that these things don't go wrong. They didn't take the advice. So, I think really, what we're going to see now playing out in the next couple of days is really going to be the market dictating what happens to Liz Truss and Kwasi Kwarteng, not what Liz Truss thinks is going to happen. That particular ship has now sailed. She's got no control over what happens. It's going to be between the markets and the Conservative MPs. They will now determine whether or not Liz Truss lasts longer than Christmas. It's never going to go 2 years. She's never going to be 2 years in this job. I can tell you now, she will not do 2 years in this job. If she does once, she'll be lucky. But let's see what happens by Christmas.
Yeah. In summing up, one of the things I've said during the course of post-COVID, and with all the different eruptions in the market, the energy prices, the food issues, the demonstration, I said it many times. If all the different stakeholders would come together and sit down, I'm talking the Labour Party, Lib Dems, Nicola Sturgeon, every one of them come together and say, let us fix this for the time being. Liz Truss is now the Prime Minister. She should be, with Kwarteng, should have called some sort of high-level meeting with everyone, push aside all the party thing, and work together, because at the end of the day, if there's a war or anything, they'll find money to fix these things. And that is so unfortunate that they missed the boat. Guys, it was a great show. We'll continue another time. Anthony, thank you very much for coming on. Gary, thank you very much again.
It's good to see you, Anthony.
Yes.
And you, Gary.
By the way, how much time are you giving the Prime Minister, Anthony? Just
end of the year.
End of the year. Okay. Gary?
Let me stay with Anthony on that one. I would say end of the year, because I can't see it 2 years being not unless a miracle takes place.
Yes. And I'll just be the facilitator. Have a good night, guys. Peace out. Right. Take care. Bye-bye. Cheers. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining tonight. And it was a good discussion. But before I go, I have to say this, because I've been doing a lot on this. The passport immigration control. Not that one. Not Mark Golding. I'll put that one up a bit shortly. But the 3rd to the 4th, 2022, in Birmingham, the Legacy Center of Excellence, 144 Potters Lane. You'll have the Passport Immigration and Citizenship Agency, in collaboration with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Foreign Trade, and the Jamaica High Commission UK, present Access Jamaica UK, where you can renew your passports. So October the 3rd to 4th in Birmingham, October the 6th to 8th in St. Mary Center, Lewisham. Renewal of your new adult passport, renewal of your new children passport, lost, stolen, damaged adult passport, lost, stolen, damaged children passport, citizen by descent, citizenship by marriage, unconditional landing, and you can get photos right there as well to sort it out. So that is going to be something that persons will be able to get their passports live and direct in Jamaica. And I've been involved in supporting the team with Mr. Winter and Mr. McFarlane and Miss Vassell. I think they are stepping into the UK. Going to be a full, strong team to be able to assist Jamaicans in the UK in getting their passport and all those bits and pieces. And finally, I got to say this as well. May rest in peace, and that is Coolio. I don't know if you guys know Coolio, rapper Coolio, who passed away. You know, may rest in peace. My condolences to his family as well. Rapper. I'm a person who love rapping and so like that. Not that I follow Coolio that much, but because of the circuit and the circles, I know of him. So may he rest in peace. We all have to go one day, ladies and gentlemen. We all have to go one day, and whenever you go, make sure you're ready to meet the maker. They said, ashes to ashes, dust to dust. God bless you all. Peace out. See you Saturday night on Talk and Sip. And next week as well, I'll be having on Tuesdays young persons to be interviewed, discussing their. As a matter of fact, I'll be having Naomi Francis this Tuesday. That is Anthony's daughter as well, doing some fantastic stuff. And before I go, I still have to do this. Mark Golden is also going to be in the UK. That is the Jamaica leader of the opposition, Mark J. Golding MP, towards the United Kingdom, October the 6th, the 7th in London, and October the 8th in Birmingham. I'm going to try to see if I can get a sit down with him. So there is, or in the UK. Everybody's in the UK now. All the best. God bless you. Peace out. And see you around. Boom.